All right. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah to everyone. And this today we're going to be talking about go a little bit deeper into the history of the Black Panther Party. So the quick recap is the Black Panther Party didn't just create itself. It's heavily influenced by brothers.
Sorry, Tyson. Do you not want to be on camera because you're not on camera?
Oh, thank you for the
Okay.
reminder. My camera was covered.
All
Okay. So they were heavily inspired by the history that preceded them, and one figure in particular, Malcolm, but Malcolm more so. I mean, Malcolm in the nation, Malcolm when he was outside of the nation, founder of the Muslim Mosque Incorporated, and of course the Organization of African American Unity. All of what Malcolm did was extremely influential to the Black Panther Party, more specifically Huey P. Newton. But it's a beautiful thing when we see the power of our story, the power of our history, the power of our tradition, and how it just continues to materialize generation after generation after generation after generation. And when we get to 1966 is only possible because of what brothers and sisters were doing in the 1800s, what they were doing in the 1700s and the 1600s. And Huey himself co-founder the Black Panther Party. And I'm going to focus quite a bit on Huey because I think it's really important to do that in our conversation and in when we're talking about the Black Panther Party, because so much of it came from this brother's mind. And I think we have been, those of us who, I mean, some of y'all might have even known Huey and, been out here seeing him do what he was doing. So that's one experience because you had a direct connection and, a window into it. But for those of us who didn't get a chance to see it and we're relying on what other people who witnessed it may have related to us, or we're relying on the narrative that's been created by a racist, white supremacist, imperial, colonial project that is not reliable for telling the truth about Black people and should not tell anybody in the world anything about any other community except themselves, because they don't even know how to be truthful with themselves. And in our tradition of Islam, like especially with hadith and the science of isnad, they're not reliable. You wouldn't go to these people, the United States of America or any of these Western European countries, to get information about anything because they are liars. They they break their word. You make treaties with native and indigenous people and you break it all the time. You make promises. You break those all the time. You are afraid to acknowledge the wrong that you've done. And as a result, you never make progress in terms of fixing those wrongs. And then you continue to persist in the wrong that you've been doing for centuries. These people are not reliable, but oftentimes it's very difficult for us to have access to information through a channel that they don't sanction. So being able to tell the truth about our people is very important. And Huey P. Newton, aside from being a brave, strong, powerful, incredible exemplar of this tradition of righteous resistance and righteous rebellion, he was a genius too. And it doesn't come across. And then some people will be like, yeah, Huey was smart because he earned a PhD later in life. And this is coming from one of my elders in the Black Panther Party, Sister Elaine Brown, because I was having a conversation with her one time, and I was like, yeah, and I was mentioning the fact that he had a PhD. I was like, Dr. Huey P. Newton. She's like, don't say that. Like, yeah, he had a PhD, but she was like, the credential that he has in our community doesn't come from UC Santa Cruz. It comes from what he did in our community starting in 1966 to organize Black brothers and Black sisters, formulating the Black Panther Party, coming up with the ideology for the Black Panther Party, not being afraid to stand up in front of these white folks, these pigs, as the Black Panther Party would say, and fighting for the freedom and the liberation of our people. So yeah, he got his PhD, but his credential in our community, his credential in this world as a political figure, as a revolutionary figure, as a freedom fighter, that's him. And no institution of white supremacy can confer that to somebody in our community. I was like, I understand. I stand corrected, which is a very common phrase that's used in the culture of the Black Panther Party. I stand corrected. You know what I'm saying? So that I think that's a really, really important piece. And I'm keeping this image of Malcolm up here because in our presentation here that I was using for the slides on the Black Panther Party, you see it. You see it in Huey and how he saw that in Malcolm. How he talks about when Malcolm was out here in 1963. And I'm curious if anybody knows anyone who was present at this event at McClymonds High School in 1963. If anyone participated in it, please share that history with me. I would love to hear more about that because there's some bits and pieces of information online that you can find, but it was an experience that folks had, and I just would love to have a better understanding of what people were doing, what they were talking about. But this is from Huey in his autobiography, and he says, I first heard Malcolm speak at McClymonds High School in Oakland when he attended a conference sponsored by the Afro-American Association on the Mind of the Ghetto. Muhammad Ali, then Cassius Clay, was with Malcolm, and he told about his conversion to Islam. He was not yet the heavyweight champion. Malcolm X impressed me with his logic and with his disciplined and dedicated mind. Here was a man who combined the world of the streets and the world of the scholar, a man so widely read he could give better lectures and cite more evidence than many college professors. He was also practical, dressed in the loose-fitting style of a strong prison man. He knew what the street brothers were like, and he knew what had to be done to reach them. Malcolm had a program, armed defense when attacked, and reaching the people with ideas and programs that speak to their condition. At the same time, he identified the causes of their condition instead of blaming the people. So this is a young Huey. He's 19, maybe 20 at the time. He sees Malcolm. Malcolm in 63 is 37, 38. And he's moved. He's moved by the stature of Malcolm, but he's moved by the way that Malcolm organizes information and communicates that information to his community. He was impressed by the power of his brother's mind because Huey was the same. And although Huey's experience was, not although he was, their experiences were very similar as they came up. So Huey was raised with his mother and father. His mother and father were in his life his entire life. Malcolm, of course, father's killed when Malcolm is around 6 years old, and his mother's taken out of his life when Malcolm's around 13. She's sent to an insane asylum. And so Malcolm he grows up in the foster system. Their school experience parallels because Huey was out here in the Bay Area. He went to schools in Oakland. He went to schools in Berkeley. He was bounced around a lot. Huey talked about how the teachers in school never taught him anything that inspired him to want to learn more. In fact, the way that he was taught in school made him want to not be in school. And then Huey describes himself as when he graduated high school from, what did he graduate? He graduated from Tech. He graduated from Oakland Tech. He said that he was functionally illiterate. A parallel with Malcolm, because Malcolm describes himself when he's locked up in prison, having to relearn how to write like legibly. He copies out the dictionary. He takes a number of writing courses to just get himself back and let me explain myself and be able to do that by using my hand and a pencil or a pen to express these thoughts and ideas. So Huey struggled with reading when he left high school. Huey struggled with his penmanship as well when he left high school, but that didn't mean that the brother wasn't smart. And then he engages in a curriculum of learning that's largely endorsed by his older brother. Melvin Newton, and Melvin as well, a very sharp and powerful mind. So he's like, Huey, read this, do this, do this. And then Huey talks about it in his autobiography, how many times he had to read the lines over and over again in order to really comprehend what was in the stories or what was in the books. And one of his first books that he really read on his own was, I think it was Plato's Allegory of the Cave. And when it unlocked for him in his mind, like, oh, I'm able to understand what I'm reading, the brother just took off. And a lot of that was just on his own, of course, supported by other folks in his community, but his commitment and dedication to engaging with ideals and thoroughly breaking those ideals down. So Huey P. Newton, Huey Percy Newton, born February 17th, 1942. We can't talk about the Black Panther Party without talking about Huey P. Newton, because as we have on the previous slide from his co-founder, and we made this point last week, Bobby Seals now was doing a lot of reinvention of the past, which is just not accurate. But from the mouth of Bobby in the 1970s, when he was still a member of the Black Panther Party, this is what he says about Huey. It's impossible to talk about the Black Panther Party without first talking about Huey P. Newton, because brother Huey put it all into motion. But now Bobby Seale is the one saying, I'm the one who put it into motion. And I just told Huey what to do. Bro, you got to stop switching up your story. But anyway, very, very important figure. His family has to leave Monroe, Louisiana, because similar to what we would see in the story of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., what we would see in the story of Malcolm X, Huey's father was somebody who was to be or needed to be respected in society as a Black man. And so if you did not respect him, he was going to let you know, I don't accept that. And so his family had to leave because of the way that white folks wanted to treat the Newton family. And they're strong. Melvin Newton, Huey's father is strong. Huey's mother was strong. The Newton family, they're still out here in Oakland area. And there's some strong brothers and sisters. You don't want to mess with the Newtons. And so they left. They came out here, West Oakland. Huey's around 3 years old. So he wasn't born here, but he was raised up in Oakland. And the first home that they had is like right around where downtown meets the 980, crossing over in the West Oakland. They were right over there. It was before 980, of course, was built. And this is the dude. He was the minister of self-defense when the Black Panther Party was first created. And he is the chief theoretician, meaning that the theories, the ideology of the Black Panther Party came from Huey's mind, Huey's analysis of history, Huey's analysis of the world, and put it together in a program that could be given to the people. So when we get into the establishment of the Black Panther Party, I think we talked about this a little bit last time. Here we have the 10-point platform and program, and this should be very familiar to a number of you on here because this is very similar to what it was saying in Muhammad Speaks in terms of what we want and what we believe. Because Huey was inspired by the example of the nation. He was inspired by the example of the UNIA. He was inspired by the example of Malcolm X. When the Black Panther Party creates the 10-point platform and program, one of the references for the 10-point platform and program was the beliefs of the Nation of Islam. I mean, almost line for line, it's similar. And I don't know why. I just don't hear it enough from folks who, claim to be scholars on the Black Panther Party. I'm not claiming to be a scholar on the Black Panther Party. Why they don't make that connection? Because that's our tradition. And then it also shows how closely linked our organizations, especially our organizations that were really rooted in the community experience, how close they were. Yeah, it's a powerful thing. And then the other piece that we know too is another major influence on the Black Panther Party was SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. I'll go back a couple of slides to this. We got Sister Ella Baker in here, who is one of the founders of SNCC. And then you have a number of prominent members who were in SNCC as well. And several of those members joined the Black Panther Party. When the when SNCC was doing its voter registration drives in Hinds and Lowndes County, when they create their party platform, the mascot that they choose is the Black Panther. So that was in existence in 1965, 1966. When the Black Panther Party is formed, you have Huey contacting SNCC to say, we want to use the party, we want to use the Panther for our organization that we're creating. Do you give us permission? Yes, we give you permission. So he was inspired by and took from the Nation of Islam, and then repurposed pieces that fit the political aspirations of the Black Panther Party, because the Nation was more of a spiritual organization. Then you have SNCC being an influence on the Black Panther Party as well. Huey being in conversation with young brothers and sisters from SNCC. We want to use the party as the mascot for our organization because the Black Panther is not an offensive animal. It only responds when it's attacked. And so in its imagery, they wanted to show we are a party for self-defense. We're not out here engaging in ignorant, useless violence. But if you come for us, we will respond, which is part of the program that Malcolm was talking about. So we see Malcolm, we see the Nation, we see SNCC, and then we see Huey's mind. Oh yeah, we believe in this, we believe in this, we believe in this. And that's why we're going to bring those things into who we are as the Black Panther Party. And then when the party begins moving, because words are beautiful, actions are supreme. And that's a quote from one of Huey's revolutionary luminaries, and that's Che Guevara. Che was somebody who was very, very important to Huey P. Newton. So Che says, words are beautiful, but actions are supreme. So 10-point platform and program, these are words. But what are the actions behind that make that move? So they take action on point 7. Little Bobby Hutton, utilizing the strategy that the Black Panther Party made the foundation of how they took action on point 7. We're going to use the law in the state of California and openly carry weapons to get the police to stop brutalizing our community. So we want an immediate end to police brutality and the murder of Black people. They begin their police patrols. There's an example of that. This is Brother Aaron Dixon, who was part of the Seattle chapter. He's somebody who I've also had the opportunity to learn from on several occasions, and what the brothers and sisters did up in Seattle. They did a fantastic job. And then when the party called everybody to Oakland, folks had to leave and come here. And he was one of the brothers who left Seattle, came down to Oakland to build out the Black Panther Party as they consolidated after years of dealing with government and FBI surveillance, and of course, the multiple attempts that the government made in order to destroy the Black Panther Party. But that's what they did. They patrolled. And almost overnight, police brutality begins to disappear in Oakland because Black Panther Party members are out there on the street. Police are out there on the street. Party members are out there on the street observing and holding their weapons because it was legal. And in the timeline, we may have talked about this last time too, the Mulford Act. Don Mulford in Piedmont starts drafting gun control for California in April of 1967. The Black Panther Party had been around for 6.5 months by the time this man starts drafting gun control. And in July of 1967, the Black Panther Party hadn't been around for a year. The state of California officially changes its law, and Republicans, Democrats, NRA, all participate in creating this new law in the state of California designed to take guns out of the hands of Black Panther Party members. They were calling them Saturday night specials. That's what they did. In 9 to 10 months, California was able to create gun control in the state of California, but all it was designed to do is to get brothers and sisters who were part of the Black Panther Party, who were observing police in the performance of their duties, to stop carrying weapons. And this is how my family enters the story, because when this happened up in Sacramento, that's where my mother and my father were at. So my father, he's originally from Pennsylvania. My mother is originally from Mississippi. She's from Meridian, Mississippi. And my mother's family ended up in the Sacramento area in North Highlands in the late 50s, early 60s. And so she was raised up out there and her younger siblings. And then my father's family comes out, my father's mother, so my grandmother, and then his two younger sisters. They come out to California in the mid 60s. And so he ends up going to high school there. And so when the Black Panther Party stages this major protest on May 2nd of 1967, it's big California news, it's national news, it becomes international news as well. But you had brothers and sisters who were in Sacramento like, who are these folks? Wait a minute. We need to be like these brothers and sisters. And so a chapter of the Black Panther Party is formed in Sacramento in an area called Oak Park. Some of y'all might know that. And that is the chapter that my father begins to interact with. And so he was involved with the party in the Sacramento area for about a year and a half before he moved down here to the Bay Area to Hayward, because he went to Cal State Hayward before it became Cal State East Bay. So my father and mother come down here. I have an older sister. She was born in Hayward. And then eventually they moved from Hayward to San Jose. And then that's where I was born. But this is how my father becomes involved in the Black Panther Party. And my mother, she was involved as well, but not as a rank and file member. She was more what was known as a community worker. So as programs that the Black Panther Party were involved in, free breakfast for children program, like the health clinics and all of that. So they had a free breakfast for children program in the Sacramento area. My mother would be there helping to serve the meals and, just be in the community. And my father was more involved in the day-to-day activities of the Black Panther Party in the Sacramento area. All right, so this happens. And then this piece right here is such a common theme that we see in our history, where a state agent tries to kill off our leadership. So in the Black Panther Party in October of 1968, and this is shortly after, so like Huey was still dealing with, I think he was dealing with some type of court mandated parole or something like that for a previous case. And so he had just gotten off of that and was celebrating with one of his comrades in the Black Panther Party. It's hard to see it on the screen, but this is 7th Street in West Oakland, where he's at. In the background, you see the pillars. I think those are the pillars for the BART station that are being built. If not, then that's right in front of the post office. That's out there on 7th Street, right next to the port. So it was one of those things, because this is all part of how California, through eminent domain, took over West Oakland and destroyed that beautiful Black business district. And two things that were put there, BART. So that's why they had to level the street and clear out so many homes. And then they put that big post office over there too, clearing out multiple homes in West Oakland. But you can see that that's in the background right there. And in the foreground of the picture, it's a Volkswagen Bug. So that was the car that Huey was in with one of his comrades from the Black Panther Party, because they were driving. It was getting ready to go to maybe Esther's Orbit Room or something like that. They was getting some food, gonna go hear some music. And the police knew all the cars that the Black Panther Party were in because they had already been surveilling the party. And so this cop by the name of John Frey, and I don't know, some of y'all might even know that dude's name, because he was known as a super racist, hyper violent police officer who was just beating up folks in the community left and right. So he pulls over the car because he recognizes this is a Black Panther Party car. And when he pulls it over, then hops out the car, he walks up to the car, he sees that it's Huey sitting in the car. He tells Huey, get out. Huey gets out because the party knew this. They had their whole routine. Huey would always have a law book with him, because when he was dealing with police officers, he was a genius. Huey would just be like, California statute, whoop-de-whoop-de-whoop says this, you can't do, you know what I'm saying? Like, he would just hit them with the logic and the knowledge of the law. And most of the time people would stand down, but this dude didn't care because he wanted to kill Huey. That was his motivation once he saw that it was Huey. Because in a year's time, the Black Panther Party had created such a commotion when it comes to the state apparatus here in California. So these people like, he got to go. John Fry was like, well, I'm the one that's going to do it. Similar to what Imam Fahim was saying yesterday in the khutbah when he was talking about Omar al-Khattab, and how when it was time for someone in the community of Mecca to say, we got to get rid of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Omar was like, well, I'm going to go do it. And we know that that was part of his conversion. And John Fry was converted too. He just was transitioned out of this life into the next. That's what happened to him. So he pulls out Huey, and then he starts walking Huey back to his squad car. And as he's walking him back, he's hitting him, like pushing him and all of that. And then he reaches for his pistol. Huey sees the danger. Huey turns around. Huey, and this is something that I learned from my Black Panther Party elders. They were like, Huey loved to say that he knew martial arts. And they say it like in a joking way. But he was a tough dude. Like he could fight really well. But they say like he always used to say, I know martial arts, don't worry about it. You know what I'm saying? But Huey did something because he was able to defend himself in that moment and protect himself from that gun. But shots go off. Huey gets shot in the stomach. John Fry shot multiple times. He eventually dies from those gunshot wounds. And then there was another cop on the scene who pulls out a gun. He's firing as well. That cop gets shot too. He doesn't die from those injuries. But you can see in the newspaper clipping, that's Huey handcuffed to the hospital gurney. A cop in front in the foreground of the picture who was beating on Huey while he was handcuffed to the bed. Huey's still suffering from the gunshot wound in his stomach. And this leads to Huey's trials. So Huey is tried 3 times for the murder of a white police officer, leader of a Black revolutionary organization, on trial for murder of a white cop. After 2.5 years, they had to dismiss all the charges because there was no evidence. And Huey was defending himself. Huey didn't voluntarily walk out of that car. Huey didn't tell the cop to pull out that gun. Huey was defending himself. This dude was just trying to take Huey's life. And this is what I mean by a theme of trying to kill our leaders. We see that multiple attempts on Malcolm's life. Malcolm was eventually assassinated. There were multiple attempts on Dr. King's life, multiple attempts on the life of Honorable Elijah Muhammad, multiple attempts on, Sister Fannie Lou Hamer was beaten while she was locked up in jail. Ida B. Wells had death threats put on her. W.E.B. Du Bois. I mean, we can just go down the line. This is something that has been commonplace in our community. Brother Medgar Evers assassinated in his driveway in 1963 in Jackson, Mississippi. That's what we face. And then, of course, we know what happened to other members of the Black Panther Party. But they tried to take Huey out. Huey didn't. He didn't die. And this led to the Free Huey campaign, which inspired so many brothers and sisters around the United States to join the Black Panther Party. And then throughout the world to pay attention to the Black Panther Party. And then there were some international chapters of the Black Panther Party as well. And then here are folks who became leaders in the LA chapter. So the Los Angeles chapter is considered the first official chapter outside of Oakland to be established. So you have our Prentice Bunchy Carter, who came from a street organization called the Slawsons. And one of my good brothers and homies, brother by the name of Kumasi. So he's Lil Kumasi. His father is General Kumasi, who came up under Bunchy, and General Kumasi, who was locked up with George Jackson, knew this brother Bunchy. And Bunchy also had, he spent time in the Nation of Islam as well. And that's a connection that you see a lot with members of the Black Panther Party. Either they were in the nation, or they were Muslim and they were in the party, or after the party, they become Muslim. They participate in some form of the, Islamic movement, Black Islamic movement. So you have Bunchy Carter, incredible leader, fiery brother, and sharp mind, great organizer. You have this brother right here, John Huggins, who came from the East Coast And then his wife on the far right, Erica Huggins, who's still around doing, work in the community to this day. And then you have Sister Elaine Brown from North Philadelphia, who moves out to LA. And in her autobiography, A Taste of Power, I'd recommend you reading that if you haven't read it before. She talks about how so far removed she was just from the Black community and just depressed, and then starts like connecting more with her people as she was working in this community organization that was working with young Black girls in the LA area. And right around the time that Dr. King is assassinated, so in April of 1968, that's what caused her to be like, I need to be involved in something with my people. So she immediately gets involved in the Black Panther Party, and these are her comrades. Her captain was Sister Erica Huggins. The leader of the LA chapter was Bunchy Carter, our Prentice Bunchy Carter, and John Huggins. And they was comrades. And then sadly, in January of 1969, when the US government declares that it wants to wage war on the Black Panther Party, Bunchy and John are both gunned down at UCLA, at the campus of UCLA, in a meeting that was hosted to determine who was going to become the leader of a Black studies program at UCLA. So the Black Panther Party was heavily involved in that work, but both Bunchy and John were gunned down in cold blood by another organization, members of the US organization, or US, as in United Slaves, which was led by a man by the name of Ron Karenga, who's now known as Maulana Karenga, the founder of Kwanzaa. And this is part of the reason why because this is the community that I was raised up in, I have a lot of difficulty with that gentleman and that tradition, Kwanzaa, because his community was directly responsible for taking out two leaders of the Black Panther Party. So yeah, a lot of history there. But the Black Panther Party spreads, just like the Nation of Islam. It starts in one particular area, and then the movement spreads to other parts of the country. And then when we begin to talk about the work of the Black Panther Party, they were focused on the freedom and the liberation of our people. But one of the things that was common in the Black Panther Party, going back to Huey P. Newton as the chief theoretician, they would talk about survival pending revolution. So our goal is to be free. Revolution, revolutionary change, whatever revolutionary change is going to look like in our community. But in order to get to that revolutionary change, we got to survive. And so these are things that we need in our community, because we can't rely on the government to do this for us. We got to do this for ourselves, which is part of the Tuskegee model of Booker T. Washington, which is part of the model of the UNIA, which is part of the model of the Nation of Islam. We got to do it. We're not relying on the people who are our oppressors to take care of us. So our children need to eat. We're going to build this free breakfast for children program. Our community needs access to quality health care. We're going to create clinics. We want education. So then we're going to create schools. We need clothing. We're going to make that for ourselves. Shoe manufacturing, plumbing and maintenance, cooperative housing programs. So Sister Elaine, she just finished developing 79 units of 100% affordable housing in West Oakland right now off of 7th Street. The building is called the Black Panther. It's a beautiful building. I worked with her on that project from 2016 to late 2023. And so every step of the way I saw this woman work extremely hard in order to bring quality housing to our people. A major part of that is what's known as Oakland Community Housing. That came from the Black Panther Party with this free cooperative housing program. So the stuff that people are trying to do now on some, let's build free housing or let's build good housing for the people, the Black Panther Party established that here in Oakland back in the 70s. Free ambulance service, optometry programs, dental programs, sickle cell anemia testing, cooperative housing, busing programs, and the SAFE program. This was a program for elders in the community so they could walk the streets safely. And so you would have young folks or members of the Black Panther Party who would just be out there in the community escorting folks where they needed to go. And the work was all for, we need to survive so we can get strong. And when we get stronger, we can be more involved and more dedicated and committed to a revolutionary movement in order to free our people. And again, it comes from the minds of these brothers and sisters, but one mind in particular, Huey P. Newton, co-founder of the Black Panther Party, chief theoretician, and their work continues. So I'm gonna stop here for the day. I'm gonna add a little bit more next week, and then we'll wrap up the Black Panther Party. And then we'll get to the last part of our book of Carry On Tradition, and we'll talk about the brother Amilcar Cabral and the movement in Guinea-Bissau in the 60s, culminating in 1973 and 1974.
Alhamdulillah, Takbir. I know y'all can hear me out there. It's good. It's yeah, I grew up in Oakland, and so much of all of this did not have the details. Alhamdulillah, but that's why we pay Tyson the big bucks to be here to make sure we get this information. So it's really, really beautiful, really, really wonderful. And you think about Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Click it on our Facebook Live side. Bismillah. So Alhamdulillah, to speak of Tyson's address that just finished. And it's so much to get through, so much to get through. So therefore, we're going to do that. Everybody, please mute your mics. No, mute your mics, please. And how many of those things that the Black Panther Party were doing do we not need now? That is, we don't need that anymore. We don't need this anymore. I got to tell you, my granddaughters are here for the weekend as well. So always welcome that aesthetic background. In fact, Nuri is the one that's here. She's the wild card of it all. She's the 3 years or yeah. No, she's not 3 years. Is she 3 years old? You know what it is. Grandpa moment. Any case, so I'm gonna have to work my own way through that. But let's get past that. So much. I mean, so much. I do believe we definitely have to in light of what we know and this history, we have to look at Brenda, text grandma and let her know what's going on, or call, either way. So in any case, I'm losing my point here. I thought I could stand it. No, we have got to. We so let, quote unquote, America off. Just y'all stay with me now. You know who I am. You know my perspective. But information has a shifting, a clarifying influence as well. The deliberateness, there's two books that I referred to, but now I'm going to add the true history of the Black Panther Party to that list, and that is The Color of Money and The Color of Law, where you can Naeem, you gotta mute your mic, bro. You gotta mute your mic. Yeah, no. So in terms of the deliberateness, you have to include Caste, Isabella Wilkerson's book. So I'm saying, in terms of this perspective, really getting an understanding of how deliberate, and not to take it as, okay, well, it was just a conspiratorial kind of thing, the whole who shot John Kennedy and all the rest of that. So as to push it out like, yeah, well, there was no deliberate, there was no conscious effort, there was no situation like that. It was just, it kind of just happened. It was whatever, lone wolf, however you want to say it, right? People acting outside of what we really would like to see happen. What can we do? Is it? No. It's a conscious effort to keep this people from becoming a people, to put it bluntly. And these assassinations, I mean, assassinations, and it's, it's just so much that can be said about it, but I got to move on. But it's hard because of the gravity of seeing and understanding. This has been, and to effectively, this is the life of that people who are trying to become free, independent, sustainable, autonomous, etc., against a force that is itself monstrously seeking to sustain its own life against those people who want to have their own life. It's not exactly that, but I'm just going to rhetorically say, an immovable object meets some of what is undefeatable force or something like that. When that clash is going on, and so when you see these assassinations, and you just talking about one group, one party, one group, and everything about it, all these assassinations that took place inside of it, and the blindness that the people, even the people for whom these people were working and living and dying, not even conscious of how much of a deep commitment, conviction, and sacrifice. I mean, literally and figuratively, energetically and otherwise, that they give their life for. I got to move on. It's hard to move away from the power and the significance of that. And I'm going to go ahead and give you this for the religious people. When I say the religious people, I mean people who have some inclination to scripture, and this especially the Bible, right? That Islam says it as much as Allah takes to himself martyr witnesses for truth. That's not just for Muslims in the formal sense of Muslims. It's for human beings that give their life for those things that Allah intends for all human beings to have, but those human beings are being deprived of it. So they even acting, whether they're acting as a Buddhist or whether they're acting as a Hindu, or they're acting even as an atheist, but they are fighting for what human beings by nature should have. Well, then they die for it. Then that's service to God, whether they know it or not. That's service to God because they willingly put their lives on the line for the purpose of the realization for a segment of humanity that they're connected with, so that they can have what God created them to have, right? And this is the sweet and sour aspect of we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights. It's the truth, unfortunately spoken. Unfortunately ain't the best word. It doesn't matter. The truth spoken from someone who is not living true to the truth that they spoke, but they too were willing to die for that. But they themselves hadn't reached the universality of their own aspirations, because you were having slaves, right? You were having slaves. You're saying the right thing, but you're doing it. What Titan said this morning. It's words are beautiful, but actions are supreme, right? So that's so wonderful. I am. So Tyson hijacking my time here with his information. But it's just our spirit, and when you see it, you just think, oh, the thing I want to say before I move on to what I'm supposed to be doing, is the Bible says that Christ was crucified repeatedly. There's something to that effect, that's in that. Christ was crucified repeatedly, right? Every one of these martyrs for the truth, which is freedom, justice, equality, human dignity, and human freedom, and universal respect for the sacred human nature. These people are dying for that. Malcolm died for that. El Haj Malik Shabazz, Martin Luther King, and all the others, and so many others. Those who were assassinated. Tyson brought to us about the freedom rides and. Schwerner, Cheney, and Goodman, I think that's the name. These are all Christs that were crucified for the aspiration to help the realization in their lifetime and in the futures of those that they are fighting for, that they have at some point in time, like Martin Luther King's dream. It's like one day I'm standing for and speaking for and acting for and marching for that one day when everyone is respected the way that they should be respected, because that's what Allah created them for, to be respected and have the life in this world of the good things that Allah has created for all human beings. But then you got a class and a group of people who are bound and determined to keep anybody else that doesn't line up with them from getting that, and we will kill you in order to make sure you don't get that. It's monstrous, monstrous. Okay. So where are we? We're continuing today. I'm gonna make sure I get the slides up. I think everybody is seeing the slides. I have all indications that say the slides are
Yeah, we can see it.
All right, wonderful. All right. So let's go. Now, everybody, y'all grown folks, when you gotta go, you gotta go. But